We have it on TV.
Jeff had shown interest. Jeff had imagined Joe would want to watch since he's not here. Just how do they?
They're on YouTube.
Has the TV from the back. That is being cut off. Should I change it to just TV?
I am being cut off. All right. Welcome. Glad to have some visitors. We are excited to have you here, and tonight's going to be a lot of fun because we're having a guest speaker who's waiting eagerly to greet you all the way from Indonesia. So it's something that we've been preparing for a while and looking forward to. We're going to do that part first. This is kind of our missions highlight. About once a quarter, we're going to try to highlight just the importance of missions in general, and then also try to get to know some missionaries, hear their testimonies, and then we'll come back and do our prayer and praise where we really get into the worship and the word. So we're going to start out, I think, with a video that we're not starting with the video. Okay. Well, I'm going to turn it over to Daniel then. So Daniel, thanks for joining us. This is Daniel Bristol. He's with Mission Aviation Foundation. And I had the opportunity to meet Daniel and his wife, Casey, many years ago in 2016. Rebecca and I were taking certification classes and for our adoption process, and they were doing the same thing, and just had a really tender heart. They were good. We connected very well. And then he followed his passion to become a pilot in the mission field. And that sounds really exciting. We're going to hear about that. And we completed our adoption just recently in end of 2020. So that was a long process, and very happy about that. And they've had Vita, one child of their own since then, and they're resuming their adoption process now. So we're excited about that, about the heart of God to love the orphans and the widows and those who cannot care for themselves, and to share with one another. So thanks, Daniel. Thanks for being here, and we turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being able to come and share with you guys. Excited to be able to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing here in Indonesia and some of the things that to be a part of. So I'm going to go ahead and open up and I'll get to the slideshow if that's okay with you. And just kind of talk through things. I don't know if you can still see the video or if it's just the slideshow, but Mission Aviation Fellowship in Papua, Indonesia.
Hey, Daniel,
Inside of those white.
can I interrupt for 1 second? We're barely able to hear you, so I'm going to try to change up the audio here, okay? Sorry about that. Hold, please. All right. Can you try again?
Okay, is this any better?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll go back up just a little bit. Well, it was on the screen, but some of the ways that what we do here is in support of Bible training. These white boxes here is an opening for a large box full of Bibles. And this is for the young people, the Southern Young Bible Translation. It was late in the year 2000, and in the last 20 years, they have not had a reprint of the Bible. So all the Bibles that were made in 1999 or 2000, it's all that they had to share among the people. Now we're showing up with, I think it was over 500 new Bibles to share with the people there. So it's really exciting that some of the Bibles that are probably ripped and torn and not in good condition can get replaced. Here's one of the favorite ministries that we get to work with. This is the Siloam Clinic and the Harapan School that we have here in Papua, which means hope. These 4 people that are closest to me are all teachers, missionary teachers that are working in the village of Donawagi. And down there in the village, there are no roads leading to other cities. There's footpaths and some rough terrain for them to get around on. And so there are over 40 students, 40 Indonesian children that are learning Indonesian, the language, as well as mathematics and how to write and proper grammar. And this is important because there were no schools there that were supported. What's also great is these are missionaries that are serving there. So they are sharing the love of Jesus as they teach and care for their children. And then these 2 people here on the far side are nurses that staff the clinic. There is no doctor there. There are these 2 nurses who provide medical care for the entire area. And we as pilots get to help serve them by bringing them supplies and the things that they need, as well as if there's a medical evacuation or a need for a medical evacuation, they can call upon us and we can come and help take that person or that patient to a better facility. And then right before Christmas, there was a pastor's conference in the highland village of Ilu. And these are all pastors that are lined up here to meet the head pastor, the head leader of one of the national churches. It's this gentleman right here in blue, and he's going through and shaking all of their hands. That day when I arrived, there were over 40 pastors that came in for a pastor's conference. It was going to be a week-long teaching and training session. And I talked to this pastor here at the very beginning about the conference and their plan, and he said, yeah, we'll be diving into the Word for a week of encouragement and to spur us on in the work that we are doing here in the Ilu Valley. And he said that there were probably about 30 more pastors working their way to come in as well. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of roads. I'm going to show you a map here soon for them to be able to get around on, so it takes quite a bit of time for travel, and flights are not always available when they need it because there's more requests for flights than we have aircraft and pilots here. So to talk a little bit about where we serve, you've seen some photos of what the tundra looks like, but to actually give you an idea of where we are in the world, here's our map. We go from the United States all the way over here to Indonesia. It's this grouping of islands here. There's over 18,000 islands across the country, and close to 8,000 of those are inhabited by people. So that's the region there. And if we expand the country, it is as wide across from here in Papua all the way to the Sumatran island as the United States is from California to Florida. So the country is very widely spread out. And like I said, thousands of islands all across this area. We live and work here in this area called Papua. And then if we expand that even further, this is the map that I like to show people. This is the island of Papua. And right now we currently live here next to this little airplane in Sentani. And those red lines are the only roads that we have on the island. So there's this major road right here up to Sarmi. There's a road here in the Tamika area, down in Merauke. And they did build a road all the way up here to one of our other large cities called Wamena. However, here across the river, the Membramo River, it washed out recently, and so the bridge that crosses here is not in very good condition, and so trucks do not drive to Wamena very frequently. So a majority of our transportation across the island is by airplane. You can see the little cities, those are larger cities, most of them all have airports. And then there's even more, there's probably hundreds if not thousands more villages. And here in Papua, MAF has 195 airstrips that we fly to. Now, not all of them do we go to very frequently, but there's 195 that are registered in our database of airstrips or villages that we will serve and fly in and out of. And so it takes, for me as a new pilot, a little while to get checked out and to get experience in all of those, but with time and with flying, we'll get there. So we'll talk a little bit about why we serve. This is kind of important for us because we can easily stay in America and live there and be just fine, but God has called our family in particular to share the gospel here in Papua. Matthew 28:19 through 20 is kind of our mission statement, and it's a good mission statement there from the Bible as well. We are to go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. And that's really important for us. Those are the words that Jesus spoke before he ascended to heaven, and for us to know that we are to go and make disciples of all nations. Here in Papua, we have close to 300 nations. There are 300 different speaking groups. They all have a different language, somewhat of a unique culture to each of them. And so those 300 nations are needing to hear the gospel. Thankfully, I believe we're at about 25 gospel translations of those 300. So we've got some ways to go, but we're making headway.
Wow.
One of those that heard the gospel for the first time about 10 years ago were the Wano. Actually, it was about 8 years ago that they heard it. I visited that village 10 years ago. This gentleman right here, his name is Liku. He was one of the people that I met when I visited 10 years ago. And it was before the gospel had come to the Wano, and so they were still wandering in darkness and very confused about the world around them. But thankfully, the gospel was shared. And not only was it shared, but it grew significantly. And Liku was one of the first to receive the gospel. He is now a pastor and a missionary. And he is someone I had not seen for a very long time. And while flying in another very remote area, I had come across Liku, who was there to do some church work as well as some mission work among the Wano. It was down in the lowlands area, usually the Wano up in the mountains and the highlands. But it was really great to get to come across and meet Liku again and to hear the work that he's doing. He flies as often as he can to visit fellow Wano and to share the gospel with him. And if he can't fly, he will often walk because he is well built and knows how to walk the trails. And what would take him 2 or 3 days to get from one village to the other would probably take me about 7 days because it's hard hiking. And in an airplane, those 3 days of traveling could be done in about 30 minutes. So for missionaries like Liku, the airplane is very important. He has become a disciple and is discipling others. So he takes on the mission statement with us as well. So to talk a little bit about how we serve, here in Papua, we have 2 aircraft, the Cessna Caravan and the Daher Kodiak. And those are the 2 that we fly. I have some pictures. This is the Cessna Caravan in the highland village of Kuiwagi.
taking supplies. So like I said, what would take an average person, if they had a good 4x4 truck or could hike to go from one large city, Wamena, to this village of Koiwagi, probably take them about 2 or 3 days to get there. We do it in an airplane in about 25 minutes. So it saves a lot of time, and we can carry a large amount of cargo and supplies. So these are all food and supplies and cargo for the people that live there. This is the inside of our Daher Kodiak. This is the aircraft that I specifically fly and work on. It's a great plane. It can carry quite a bit of cargo. It can fly very slow, so we can land some very short airstrips safely, delivering cargo, people, and supplies. So here's a load of cargo that we have shut down. Those are actually the Bibles that I had showed you earlier. It was 400 kilos, which is close to 900 pounds of Bibles. We measure all of our loads in weight instead of the amount of things that we can take. And then here we are transporting a patient. This woman who's on a homemade leaf stretcher is being loaded into our aircraft. She had delivered a baby and was having some complications post-birth. The baby, I was able to take a look at and see, and he looked pretty healthy and looked to be in fairly normal condition for a 3-day-old. So the baby was doing okay, but the mom needed some medical needs, and so we were able to fly in and pick her up. This is one of my coworkers, Case. He was the pilot training me that day, so it was really exciting to be a part of that. This is just another way that we can use an airplane to help serve people. From this village, again, if they needed to walk this woman out, which they would carry her much like you see here, they had to carry her to a neighboring city. It's possible that she may not survive, and if so, it would take her 5 to 6 days to get there, to get to a city with a good hospital. And we flew her to the hospital, and she was there within about 3 hours. So the flight was 30 minutes and a little bit of time for paperwork and processing. And then part of my other job here in Papua is an aircraft mechanic. Here's one of our Kodiaks that we have opened up, and we're doing an inspection and working on fixing a few things. On the front end, we're going to take the engine off here today and take a look on the inside and make sure it's in good working order. And then on the tail, the backside, we had to take it off. It had some damage, some rock damage in some of the places that we fly into, and so we took the tail off and fixed the sheet metal, and hopefully next week we'll be putting it back on. So not only are we flying into these places, but we are working to maintain our aircraft in good conditions so that they're safe to fly, and that they can operate in some of the environments that we go to that are pretty rough. So that's my presentation. That's a little bit about what Mission Aviation is doing here in Papua. Before we go straight into questions, I'll share a little bit about my story. I know Nate shared that we were there in Waco in 2016, but I first heard about mission aviation when I was in high school. The missionary that worked with the Wano tribe with Liku had shared about some of the work that they were doing there. I said, hey, that sounds really cool. I'd love to be a pilot. I love airplanes, and it looks really neat what you're doing. And so from there, it sparked my interest, and I went through flight training and maintenance training. I did my maintenance training at Texas State Technical College there in Waco, Texas. And that's how I was able to meet Nate. And then my flight training I've done in various places along the way, but one of them was at Laterno in Longview, Texas. And so putting those two together kind of completed the package for what Mission Aviation or Mission Aviation Fellowship is looking for. We need both pilots and aircraft mechanics. And then did some Bible training along the way and went through the training process. And here we are in Papua, Indonesia, about 3 years later. So I'll open it up. If you guys have any questions, I can field those and share a little bit more about what we're doing here.
So we have a microphone here. If anybody wants to ask any questions, we'll pass you the mic. And I believe you can hear the question just fine now. You can hear me speaking just fine now, right, Daniel? All right.
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Do you have a question for him, Benjamin? They asked him questions. But
so he should be ready to answer it. What was it you asked him the other day? What was something how God had worked in his life?
How has God helped you?
Yeah. So God has been very instrumental all along the way, both from providing for me. Flight training is a bit expensive, and so one of the ways I was able to cut down the cost is I worked as a nurse in a hospital, and so God provided both the training and the financial need. Here in Papua, we rely on God heavily for both our financial support as well as our day-to-day life. In particular today, we had a lot of power outage and power issues, which makes it hard to work on airplanes in the dark or without power. But thankfully, somebody was able to take a look at our generator and also figure out what the problem was and fix that. So God provided both a mechanic here to fix the problem as well as to restore the power so that we can work on the airplane today. So God has provided for our family in big ways, both providing for us to get here to Indonesia, as well as in small ways with day-to-day things like electricity and the power that we need to work on airplanes to keep them in good shape.
Anyone else have a question?
I do.
All right, we're passing the mic. Just a minute.
Okay.
Hi, Daniel. This is James Strickler. We have some things in common, both TSTC and Laternal. I went through the aviation maintenance course at TSTC and also went through the welding engineering program at Laternal. And I was aware of the missionary program there and had a lot of friends in that program. And looks like you're putting that all the education and your godly desires to good work. God bless.
Yes, over here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, God was very helpful. At the time when I was at Laterno, it's a bit of an expensive school, and so I needed a way to become an aircraft mechanic, a little more affordable, and that led us to Waco. So it was great. And very happy to be out here serving.
How long has the business been open?
So, you asked how long have we been open? Yeah, so Mission Aviation Fellowship first started in 1945. It was started by a group of World War II pilots who were trained up as pilots and thought, hey, we've got great education and knowledge, why don't we put this to good work? And their good work was using aviation as a tool for missionaries. So in 1945 is when we started, and MAF has been here in Papua since 1954. So over 60 years, and the building that I'm in is the same building we've been using the entire time. So for 60 years, MAF has been flying here in Papua, serving the people and spreading the gospel and sharing the good news.
Has God did anything good for you?
Yes. So as I shared before, he's provided for us in a lot of ways, but one particular story was here recently. We took a break and came to America and had a little holiday with our family. And then it was time for us to return. And unfortunately, the Indonesian government had shut down the borders and had stopped travel, or had limited the amount of travel. My family, we have a visa that allows us to come in and out of the country. It's a work visa that gives us permit. And so we were able to return, but because of the limited travel, a lot of the airlines had shut down their flights. But God provided a place for us to stay. It was good enough that we could stay with my family a little bit longer. And then he opened the doors that we were able to get on a flight that brought us all the way here to Jakarta, or to Indonesia. And then he also provided that we did not get sick. We had good health the whole way and didn't have any issues, and the government gave us the permission we needed to continue on and come back home here to Papua. So that's one of the ways recently that we saw God in many, many little details, work it out so that we could come back home and continue serving.
We have a question from online, which is asking, what is your favorite part?
Oh, well, I'm going to back up on the slideshow a little bit. And I'll tell you right now, my favorite part, in particular, with some of the people we serve with, was the photo that I showed early on. And it is with our SL Hall and Siloam Clinic families that we get to work with. A lot of the places that we're doing Bible translation, it's a very difficult airstrip and hard for me to fly in and out of. And so it's a higher level of expertise that's needed. And I don't have that just yet. It'll come with time. But I do get to fly with our Siloam Clinic nurses and our SPH, our Harapan school teachers. And those people it's always so much fun to work and to serve with them. I mean, these are missionaries that are living in very hard places, and they always appreciate when we come. And what's also great is every time we come, they meet us at the plane, and this team in particular will take time out of their day to pray for me and ask particularly how they can pray for me. And so that is one of the ways that I really enjoy serving, is being able to work with them. And then, of course, the other one was with our medical evacuation picture that I showed you earlier, being able to help people on their medical needs. There's very few clinics in these villages, and the clinics are not very well staffed. And so being able to transport a patient out to a larger hospital to get them the medical care that they need is one of the things that I love doing, and helping to serve them. So the video that we'll show here soon, or whenever we have time, is a flight to Mami. So we're going from here in this region out here into the mountains, just about here. And so you'll see that mountainous region that we fly into. And Mami's one of the places that I like going as well. There's a school there and clinic nurses, and I've gotten to talk to the nurses quite a bit about their experience and some of the things that they're doing. And for me, that's exciting to get to talk to them about nursing a little bit, since that's what I did there in America for a period of time.
Next follow-up question from online is, what is the hardest part of your job?
Yeah, well, hard days. I mean, here it's nice and hot, unlike Texas. Well, Texas in the summertime, hot and humid. Right now, you guys are still a bit cold. So some days the heat gets to me, and some days are long, and there's a lot of work to be done, and maintenance in particular. But I think for me, the hard part is getting my pride out of the way so that God can do his work. What I mean by that is, as a missionary, we are here to serve God, but as a human, there are times that I become prideful about what I do, or prideful about